distracting to the speaker. You can view it by putting everything the gallery view or the speaker view once the program starts. Everyone will be muted once the speaker. So please keep your, if we fail to mute you, please mute yourselves. Okay, then we will have opportunity to unmute everyone when after the speaker finishes her talk. And we want to welcome Sunland Home, another sister facility in Encinitas, California. Okay, since Christian Science Nursing Quality is punctual, it's 3 p.m. I want to welcome everyone. I'm Maravik Mabanag. I serve as the Executive Director of High Ridge House. We want to welcome you to our online metaphysical talk. This started a few years ago as part of our Rebuilding High Ridge House. And we used to do the metaphysical talks monthly and just amongst our staff. Since this World Challenge started and we got a lot of requests, we've been sharing this Zoom talk, this metaphysical talks via Zoom. And we are so grateful. The last one was oversubscribed and people actually could not get on. So we had to increase our subscription. So thank you all for your support of this talk. We have over 100 people right now and more coming on that we have to admit. So I just want to welcome, we are so blessed to have my good friend and everyone's good friend, Doris Goff, who's a Christian Science practitioner from Garland, Texas. Many of you may know Doris. She has served as a trustee from the Leaves, another sister facility. But I knew Doris when she was a Christian Science nurse in Ardenwood, and we actually belong to the same Christian Science branch church, Mill Valley, California. So she's available 24/7 to those of us who are seeking help through prayer alone. She has been for over 75 years. Doris has been active in all facets of church duties. Her bio was on our announcement, so I won't read the whole thing. But we are so blessed to have her here. She's given lots of talks in different facilities and associations. And so without much further ado, let me introduce Doris Goff to everyone.
Oh, Maravik, your loving invitation to be with you today is just so precious. And I treasure the days that I spent serving as a nurse at High Ridge. Wonderful, lovely experiences. And today, I'm just going to be sharing an example of love's divine adventure and how packing my spiritual armor or tools met every human need. And I know that there's so many of you that are listening in that you can just keep nodding your head and saying, oh, yes, I've done that. So we're going to open a message from our beloved leader, Mary Baker Eddy. It's found in Miscellany. We live in an age of love's divine adventure to be all in all. This day is the natal hour of my lone earth life, and for all mankind today hath its gloom and glory. It endureth all things. It points to the new birth, heaven here, the struggle over. It profits by the past and joys in the present. Today lends a newborn beauty to holiness, patience, charity, love. Having all faith in Christian Science, we must have faith in whatever manifests love for God and man. The burden of proof that Christian Science is science rests on Christian scientists. The letter without the spirit is dead. It is the spirit that heals the sick and the sinner, that makes the heart tender, faithful, and true. Most men and women talk well. Some practice what they say. God has blessed and will bless this dear band of brethren. That's the end of the quote. Today, may we rejoice that this is a day of gratitude to our dear leader for her cherishing, nourishing the world. Well, as a wife, a mom, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, It's been a wonderful adventure to turn to the teachings of Mary Baker Eddy and find the promises of Christ Jesus are just as alive and well right now as they were when he trod the dusty paths centuries ago. Our textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, just unlocks the answer to the question that has been asked for many years. This book is a treasure. The question is there any balm in Gilead? And you can find that in the books of Jeremiah and the book of Luke. It's mankind's plea for healing. Well, in 1992, I volunteered to work at the Cedars Camp in Lebanon, Missouri one summer, and to help with the tuition for one of my grandchildren. I worked in housekeeping, and I had a small room over the kitchen and dining room with a little bed, a little desk, and a rocking chair. Now, doesn't that sound like just a perfect Mary Baker Eddy room? And so after a busy day, I opened my Bible for some quiet inspiration. And I prayerfully asked the question, what would you have me to do, dear Father? What is my next adventure? And the Bible opened to John 13. It's the story of Christ Jesus washing the disciples' feet and the loving message. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. Whoa. I heard the message from Mrs. Eddy that I shared in our opening statement, and I thought washing feet is, quote, whatever manifests love for God and man, the spirit that heals the sick and the sinner, that makes the heart tender, faithful, and true, unquote. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That sounds like a Christian Science nurse. No way. And I slept very peacefully. The second night I said, okay, God, let's see where we go tonight. And the Bible opened to the same story, the same message. And I called my sweetheart and he said, so you're calling the Leaves when you return? And the Leaves is a Christian Science nursing facility in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Well, my sweetheart was certainly on the side of God in this, but I was confident that this would not be my work, but I would be obedient and call the Leaves. I knew they had closed down their training program before I left for the summer, and I knew I was safe. No washing feet for me. I returned home to East Texas, called the director of nursing in Dallas, and she said they had just reopened the school and they had 3 men who had applied, and now they would have 3 men and a little lady. And the adventure began. Now, there were 2 strong points made on the first day of nursing instruction that continued for me to be very valuable. And the first one was the story of Pontius Pilate from John 18, asking Jesus, why are you here? Who are you? And Jesus replied, for this cause came I into the world, to bear witness to the truth. And so I too was to bear witness to the truth. I was to be a witness to see the truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. My first declaration. The second declaration was from 2 Corinthians, quote, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. I loved learning that the doorway of the nursing room is, quote, the line of demarcation between the real and the unreal. That's a quote from our textbook. As one practitioner lovingly said, as she was sharing her thoughts with the nursing staff, if you cannot see the line of demarcation, get out of the room. You're only adding to the problem. And that really woke us up. Well, my nursing adventures began as my sweetheart's work was relocated. And for the next 13 years, I served at the Leaves in Dallas, Canterbury Crest in Portland, Oregon, Ardenwood in San Francisco, California, Olive Glen in Sacramento, California, and your beautiful High Ridge house in New York City. I also did private nursing and newborn cases. I loved washing feet and found it was seeing, acknowledging every moment the wholeness of God's child. In 1999, while I was in Northern California, the director of Olive Glen called, and she said, "Is your passport up to date for a 3-day turnaround to bring an American citizen back home? She needs a little assistance, and we need to have an American nurse as her companion. There's a benefactor that has purchased a one-way $5,000 ticket, and the return ticket will be at the airport when you arrive in Cape Town, South Africa. Will you go?" "Yes." "When?" "Tomorrow." "Oh, yes." So I called my sweetheart and I said, "Darling, I'm leaving for Cape Town tomorrow." And he said, "Okay." My need-to-know Air Force SAC guy never questioned a God-directed life. And now it was time to pack. Solid spiritual armor or tools. The first tool, you've seen this on a wall or two. Divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. That's from Science and Health. Well, this was love's divine adventure. And my second tool, standing porter at the door of thought, admitting only such conclusions as you and I wish realized in bodily results, and then you will control yourself harmoniously. That's the line of demarcation, again from our textbook. Now, the third tool is a strong point I mentioned earlier, casting down imaginations. That verse from 2 Corinthians is the uncovering of animal magnetism, a term Mrs. Eddy uses as she defines it, the quote, "the specific term for mortal mind. It is the false belief that mind is in matter and is both evil and good. That evil is as real as good and more powerful. This belief has not one quality of truth." It's in our precious textbook. Another quote from our textbook is my tool 4. "Let neither fear nor doubt overshadow your clear sense and calm trust that the recognition of life harmonious, as life eternally is, can destroy any painful sense of or belief in that which life is not." My fifth tool is from 1 John. "Perfect love casteth out fear." Powerful. My sixth tool, it's a poem by Mary Baker Eddy about listening and following and rejoicing and being my guide. "Feed my sheep." And the seventh tool, a thought from hymn 139. "I walk with love along the way, and oh, it is a holy day. No more I suffer cruel fear. I feel God's presence with me here. the joy that none can take away, is mine. Now, my bag is packed. Fly with me. We have a layover in Frankfurt, Germany. They have a beautiful concourse with great comfy seats, and you wait hours for a connecting flight. I had one recent copy of our monthly periodical. I was traveling light, the Christian Science Journal, and I settled in and began to read. There was a moving description of a chaplain's experience praying with his prison inmates. Another article was describing the Ethiopia political rumble with a beautiful spiritual outlook. A lovely couple sat at my left elbow. The seats are all connected in a long, long row, and you don't go to your ticket counter until it's really, really ready for you to take off. Everybody sits together. I found him leaning over to read the chaplain's article, and I asked if he'd like to read the whole message. He shared that he was a prison chaplain, and this article was extremely helpful. It was a new, fresh way of approaching his godly outlook and to acknowledge God's child. Well, about the time we finished our visit, a lovely young lady, a flight attendant, sat down on my right side. The chaplain had returned the journal, and I was absorbed in the Ethiopia story. And here was the flight attendant leading my way, leaning farther and farther. And after a few moments, she exclaimed, "I wish my country could read your book." She was a citizen of Ethiopia. And all I could think at that point was the Christian Science reading room has arrived in the middle of Frankfurt, and it has only one journal. So before they departed, I had shared some numbers they could contact to have their very own journal. It was our Boston address also for the Mother Church and the Christian Science Publishing Society. They were ready for their own books. A short hop to Cape Town, and I was now in line to greet the customs official to let me in. Well, I noticed that there were folks on benches with their luggage going nowhere. And I was told that these people had only one-way tickets and were being returned to their home country via transport ship. Not too elegant. A one-way ticket. The heavenly voice said to me, "Stand still." So I stayed in line. I met the customs official at the little window. He was very clear in his declining my entry. I shared that my return ticket was waiting for me, and I would pick it up as soon as he cleared me. He was very firm. I promised that I was covered and would not be only one way. He checked with his supervisor, who pounded his fist and yelled. And then the supervisor came to the window. He asked, "How many days are you going to be here?" And I pulled mentally one of my spiritual tools, a message. Remember? Listen, follow, rejoice. And immediately the godly answer came, 31 days. And then he asked, business or pleasure? And I replied, pure pleasure. He stamped my passport and ushered me through the barrier. I reclaimed my luggage and I ran to the ticket counter and asked for my return ticket. A sweet church lady had arrived to pick me up, and I shared with her my experience. Now, here's the important part. There was not a ticket at the ticket counter. It hadn't arrived. But I was on God's errand and in the palm of his hand. No doubts, no fears. I arrived at the apartment where my 3-day turnaround client was waiting for me with so much joy and expectancy. The appearance was challenging. It was not a traveling picture, and my spiritual tool of standing at the porter of door of thought was accompanied by our leader's directive that's in the textbook. Jesus beheld in science the perfect man who appeared to him where sinning mortal man appears to mortals. In this perfect man, the Savior saw God's own likeness, and this correct view of man healed the sick. So this was my purification of thought. I was washing feet. With the dedication of a California journal-listed Christian Science practitioner, we daily held to beholding in science the perfect man and the line of demarcation between the real and the unreal, and witnessing the real. 2 weeks passed, and it was Thanksgiving time. Still not time to travel yet, still no ticket. I checked every day. Well, I made a short run to the grocery store for a few basic items. Just a small chicken, a can of cranberries, and maybe a pumpkin. There were 2 handsome clerks at the dairy counter, and I asked where I could find my needs. They were so dear. Really surprised to see me shopping alone, but the funny thing was how they greeted me. John Wayne, Texas. And I laughed and I said, yes, Texas, but not John. And then they asked me how I survived shopping alone. And that's God's truth, what they ask. And I replied, we're all God's children, having one Father. Now, please pack that thought for further use in this a little later in the talk. They replied, no one talks like that. And I smiled. And then I returned with my goodies to the apartment and I was invited to the Thanksgiving church service. A caregiver had been asked to take care of the client while I was at church. So there we celebrated, and the church was amazing. The congregation knew nothing of pilgrims or pumpkins or Indians, but their deep reverence for Mary Baker Eddy overflowed. Gratitude for healing was abundant. It was a revelation for me to see the universal window of gratitude that our dear leader had provided, encircling the globe. The church was packed, standing room only, with Sunday school children overflowing every inch of the back part, just standing, and I was in awe. All right, here's another chapter in this loving adventure. We're going to go back and cook for Thanksgiving. We needed electricity. And in this country, their country, it's paid ahead of it being used. That was really different from the United States. Now, when you see the dial on the wall get to the low numbers, you just hurry down to the electric office downtown and you pay up. How do I gauge quantity? I'm clueless. Oh, I'll ask God. It'll be perfect. So I did. The little church lady is my ride, and I hop out of the car and I go through the maze of people selling wares lined out on the sidewalk. It is very crowded. I was dropped off about a block away. Now, the office is across the street from a large public park. I completed my purchase, looking very sure of my wattage. And after completing this portion of duties, I returned to the busy sidewalk. And as I walked out of the building, a very large, strong South African man grabbed me and proceeded to walk toward the park with me, explaining what he had in mind. Okay, I did not want to be a witness or a participant in what he was suggesting, insisting. Now, you remember our sweet grocery boys wanting me to be safe? I quickly turned my face toward him and said, "You have all the love you need right now. God fills you with his love." Doesn't that sound good? I thought it was great. He grabbed tighter. Okay, I thought, whatever you say, you better say it like you mean it and believe it. So then I turned my face to him and I saw only God's child. And I heard myself saying, God is our Father. We are family. You and I are brother and sister. You are here to protect me. His countenance changed. The hard, cruel face was gone. He released me and he faded into the park. The church lady had witnessed this from her car. She had parked down the block, and she said to me as I entered the car, there was nothing I could do but pray. And I saw his face change. Now, isn't that animal magnetism denounced? And there we were, witnesses in the court of spirit. Now, we have one of our metaphysical tools. Let neither fear nor doubt overshadow your clear sense and calm trust that the recognition of life harmonious as life eternally is can destroy any painful sense of or belief in that which life is not. This warning to be on guard against fear and doubt is of the utmost significance. It is nurturing, nursing thought with divine love. We are all nurses. Our beloved leader states, look away from the body into truth and love, the principle of all happiness, harmony, and immortality. Hold thought steadfastly to the enduring, the good, and the true, and you will bring these into your experience proportionably to their occupancy of your thoughts, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Okay, now 3 weeks have passed. Still not a traveling picture, and still no ticket has arrived. I called the travel agent every day, and I kept communications with the director who had sent me here. And I kept acknowledging, Father knows exactly where I am and where I am supposed to be. And we still had nursing work to do. And I just kept holding to the fact that God was in charge, and I was witnessing and watching God at work. Travel was still not the highest sense of right, however, and we visited daily with the Christian Science practitioner. And then one day, the practitioner asked me to consider the activities that were present in the South African environment. Voodoo. The practitioner said, that's it. You always take up voodoo in the Bahamas, Virgin Islands, the Caymans, the Far East. And we were on the road to a brighter day. There's a wonderful interview published in the January 2006 journal of it's a Christian Science teacher in Africa, and it's titled Soul Thinking. It addresses this subject of voodoo beautifully. He outlines the necessity of specifically handling animal magnetism and witchcraft. He's very specific in the interview and describes in detail the importance of our leaders' writings regarding animal magnetism. Christian Scientists, be a law unto yourselves that mental malpractice cannot harm you either when asleep or when awake. The CS teacher states, in Africa, that passage has a very great meaning. I had been in the Cayman Islands and I knew what the practitioner was referring to. Our leader states, the divine understanding reigns, is all, and there is no other consciousness. It's in the textbook. An uplifting transformation of thought was immediately seen. We were up and running, and now we could travel. We called a few church folks to get together for high tea. And then we were ready to pack our bags and return home. We were going to America. We had witnessed love's divine adventure, listening, following, and rejoicing. Oh, did I mention I didn't have a ticket home? On day 30, I called the local ticket office. They knew me. We were buddies. A giant thought had flooded the ticket agent's thoughts that morning. She had called the Frankfurt ticket office, and there was my ticket. The routing number had not sent it to Cape Town. It had been waiting since day one. Okay. On day 31, we were at the airport boarding for the return trip. 2 seats together were available in both Cape Town and Frankfurt. Do you hear that message? Divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. When I returned home from this remarkable God trip, the Christian Science Nurses Activities Office in the Mother Church in Boston called and asked me to come in and speak about my trip. They said, "What did you do in Cape Town?" And I replied, "It was love's divine adventure. I loved my neighbor as myself. I was a witness. We addressed witchcraft. They understood addressing witchcraft through the metaphysics of Christian Science." Now, in the adventure I shared today, client privilege has been maintained and respected, and only my experience as the nurse was shared. Today, we are acknowledging the love of God directing our every step, guiding, guarding, protecting. We are listening, following, and rejoicing. Truly, we are all nurses, cherishing and feeding thought, living in an age of love's divine adventure. Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Doris. What a wonderful, wonderful sharing. We will unmute people. We will have an opportunity for a few minutes of comments, questions, and answers, and sharing online. If you wish to speak, unmute yourself or put a question on the chat box, and I will read the question. I was afraid we would all talk at the same time. So now everyone's being really polite. Okay. Oh, Shelly, go ahead and unmute. Unmute yourself, Shelly.
Hi there, and thank you so much for your really inspiring address. I am a, can I say Maravik?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm a divinity student. I'm a Christian Scientist and a divinity student at Union Theological Seminary, and I'm doing my field education at High Ridge House. So I'm observing the wonderful work of Christian Science nursing firsthand. But I am new to the activity. And I was really interested in your statement about the line of demarcation between the real and the unreal, and how you both, I mean, this may seem like a very simplistic question from a newcomer, but how you hold to both that and the real discernment of what specific care needs might be. So how do those happen at the same time?
Doris, you need to unmute.
Okay. There's a beautiful line in the book, and I know you probably have someone's shared a textbook with you, but perfect God and perfect man is the basis of thought and demonstration. And, you know, most people would look at you and say, nobody's perfect. And you think, okay, let's go back and think, what kind of a creator do we have? Is it the first chapter of Genesis where he saw everything that he had made? And you can answer this question. What was it like? What does that first chapter say? Do you remember? Was it any good? Not only was it good, but by cracky, it was very good. And so it's like any other manufacturing plant. You get a maker that makes something magnificent and you get a guarantee on it, whether it's your car or your your hair dryer. The sweetness of it is that if you have a perfect manufacturer, is he going to make junk? And so this line of demarcation between the real and the unreal and seeing what needs to be done, you go back and you say, what do you know about it, God? What do you see? And you listen for that Father's voice. Maravik, does that explain it, or do we need to go farther?
No, I think that was good. I wanted to just explain further that actually she's been a long-term student of Christian Science and was raised in Christian Science. Well, but Shelley, we're very, very blessed to have Shelley Burt. As she mentioned, she's a Master's of Divinity student from Union Theological Seminary. High Ridge House is honored to be a field placement site, was selected. And so she's working and helping us with our patients and doing her field education at High Ridge House. Union Theological Seminary, if you all don't know about it, it's in New York. It's about over 200-year-old institution that has trained lots of ministers, priests, all different religious groups. And it's this amazing breadth of field placements. And I feel blessed because I get to be the supervisor. And it's been a very interesting experience to be part of it.
That's outstanding. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah. I also wanted to remind folks that even if you came late, this talk will be available on our website. It was recorded, so you will have a chance to listen to it again because it has several nuggets I'm sure you'll want to maybe chew on and work on and just really digest more. And we have several talks also online on our website. But are there any more questions or comments? Okay. I just want to acknowledge again, we have Science practitioners, teachers from all over the world. It's been just amazing. We have people from Paris, France, Kenya, Brazil, and we have lots of people on this Zoom call right now. We had up to 160 people, and London, practitioner friend from London, and so everyone is always welcome to join us. We do this monthly, and it's our gift of inspiration for the community and the world. And those of you who support us with your gifts of financial gifts, this is one of the ways we share this gift with the community and the world. Thank you for your support. Let's see, somebody's texting me. Okay, Jennifer Gordon, can you unmute? There we go.
Now we go. Hi, Doris.
I see you.
We got to hear this story told by Doris. She addressed our association a couple years ago. And I must say, the second time it's even better than the first time. And I've been reading John in the Holy Bible. And I've been learning so much. And one of the things that your story helped me with today is that idea of seeing what the Father does and then doing likewise. And I'm very inspired by the example expressed in your story, because you never let your gaze wander from God. And I'm excited to move forward with that lovely illustration to bolster me. So thank you very, very much.
It was wonderful to have you a part of this. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. I just want to read some of the comments from London. Thank you so much for such a powerful and inspiring message. It's from a fellow practitioner, Angie Wallace. I don't know who this is from. Thank you so much for the wonderful sharing. Lynn Meyerson, who used to work at High Ridge House, who's now at our sister facility, Clearview, says, I remember Doris mentoring me as a student Christian Science nurse at High Ridge House. Doris, wonderful hearing and seeing you again. Okay. A former speaker, Patty Thorson Paul, her talk is still available on our website. She also thanks you, Doris. And Sharon Strong, who is the head of Christian Science nurses education at our sister facility, Fern Lodge, and who has taught our students, including myself, as a level 1 Christian Science nurse, said, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Doris. I'm reading this because I know Doris probably is not able to see them. And from Sharon Simpson, can you once more tell the words you were led to say to the fellow who was thinking he wanted to harm you? Yeah.
Oh, certainly. I'm going to go back here because I want the exact words. The interesting part, I think, of all of it is, I made this on purpose that it was generic. It didn't matter really. It was thought that we were addressing. It was nothing more than thought. And I just keep thinking, if you and I are rejoicing that we're God's children, that's the best and most beautiful thing ever. I'm flipping through here. because I want the exact words for you. It's, and can you work with Jesus be held in science, the perfect man? Because that's where the beginning of all of this starts. How do we see our fellow men? Do we see God as the Father? And no matter what country we live in or what rainbow we are, it's so very dear. I'm going to get this in just a minute here. Here we go. I turned to him the first time, and I love this. You have all the love you need. God fills you with his love. I mean, those are powerful things. And that was to me like knocking on the door. There was a door that had been slammed in his thinking. And that first little key, the fact that you have all the love you need right now, God fills you. But the thing that really did it was to know that we have one maker. God is our Father. It's going back to that first chapter again, isn't it, Maravik?
Mhm.
We're family. And you and I are brother and sister. And I gave him a role in life that was honorable. His whole concept of who he was and what he had to be about his Father's business, didn't he? He couldn't be about mischief. He had better work than that to do. You are to protect me. And the whole countenance, it was like he had never seen himself before. And he was acknowledging who he really was. The other was just a sham. It's almost like you had a costume and you let it drop, and the real man comes through. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Does that help her?
Thank you for that. We have another person, Robin Jones. Robin, if folks don't know Robin, this is my time to help promote a sister organization, Albert Baker Fund. Robin Jones does these Zoom calls, webinars on behalf of Albert Baker Fund, the Career Alliance, called Net Effect. If you're not signed on, sign on right after this meeting, and it's every Friday at 6 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. Robin, take it away.
Hello, I'm actually the junior.
Oh.
Hi,
Oh,
Mimi.
okay.
Order, Robin.
And everyone, I am the grandson of this wonderful woman. And I was just wondering what Gramps thought of that wonderful story of, this great adventure in Africa. And when you told him when you got home.
I'm sorry, the last sentence.
When you got home, what Gramps had thought of this wonderful experience of everything leading up to it, all these examples of God governing and watching and taking care of everything, even just to get there, and then, everything that happened there, and then just to get home, what he really thought of all of that.
His Gramps, I think is what he said.
You have to know Henry to understand, and the boys, the gentleman that is just talking to us is a grandson, and yet he would want to know what granddaddy had to say. I think his expectancy level, Henry's expectancy level was no less, because his prayers and his support and his understanding of what I was doing was just as firm and just as beautiful. And he had no doubts. I think the sweet part is that the 3 days turning into 31, he stood firm. Now, I don't know that this is the time or the place, but we were living on a ship at the time. And while I was overseas, he was doing something in the motor. And when he fell into it, he had his cell phone with him. And he called a practitioner for help and was lifted up and out of the motor. He never let me know while I was overseas that he was having wonderful things happening right where he was. So the answer is, when I got back, we had so many wonderful things to share with each other about how God is guiding and guarding and cherishing us as we have having our daily adventures. It just watch for it. I would highly recommend, and I know so many people have walked off of the thing, but one of the things, every one of us is a book. And your children, your grandchildren, your friends, but to write these things and have them as evidence of God's proof of his care, it's happening every day. Just keep a little diary and write these things down, because they're precious. And the young man that just called in, he has seen so many evidences of the Father's cherishing and watching after. And I loved your introduction to him, because having two Robins in the house, you had to make sure you were calling the right Robin.
That's great. Thank you, Robin. I would like to share a little story about Doris, because it's related to Christian Science nursing. I was still a fairly new student of Christian Science. As I mentioned, she and I were in the same branch church, and I got quite ill, living alone. The Christian Science practitioner who was helping me decided I needed to go to a Christian Science nursing facility, Ardenwood. And I wasn't really sure what it was I had, but my face had been deformed, and I ended up losing sight in one of my eyes. I ended up being in the facility for quite some time. And but before that, in the beginning of the stay, all I remember was Doris asked me, "What would you like from your home?" And I remember being so cold, and she sent me two big night sweatshirts. Uh, it's like a sweatshirt nightgown. I actually still have one of them because I've kept it. It's one of my favorite colors, purple. And that kept me warm. And I said, "Oh, I would really like my down comforter." And I kept thinking, when I get wealthy, I want to donate down comforters to all the nursing facilities. And I as I mentioned, that I was at Ardenwood, and my healing didn't happen right away. And so I can't tell you how I really prayed, but I just kept staying there and being cared for so lovingly and so beautifully by the Christian Science nurses there. And then had my healing. I remember it was maybe a week before Valentine's Day. And but Doris was just there. She never once did visit me, because I was not her patient, and she respected that. And I couldn't allow, I'm the only Christian Scientist in my family, so none of my relatives, I didn't let them see me, because I didn't want them to be unnecessarily alarmed because I was not a pretty sight. But let me just share that on the first morning when they had to wash my face, I remember the Christian Science nurse saying, "Today we're just going to think about purity." And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And before the night that I arrived, I got wheeled in, and I grew up in the medical world. My family owns a hospital in the Philippines, and I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to get wheeled in. I have to fill out all these forms, all these different things, and none of that happened. Everything got taken care of because I couldn't really see, and as I mentioned, I was quite weak, and it was just an amazing experience. And who would have known I would end up helping run a Christian Science nursing facility? So here I am. And the healing did happen, of course, after a couple of months or so. All right. Anyone else? Okay. I think unless there's any more burning questions, and you could also, of course, contact Doris. She's in the journal. And or let us know at High Reach House if you need any questions answered or any comments you'd like to share. We like to post some of our footage and notes from the field on our website or on our Facebook page. Again, I want to remind you, there's lots of metaphysical goodies on our website right now. So feel free to go grab one of the talks, and you'll have plenty to really cherish and be inspired with. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today, because really this is our prayer for the world. You're joining in this praying about the sick room of the world through these talks, and also for being a force for good in your own little corner of the world. Thank you all, and much love. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.